In the late 1500s, England was a cash-strapped island recovering from decades of civil war. While Spain and Portugal claimed vast territories across the Americas and Asia, England remained isolated from continental politics and lagged far behind in the race for overseas discovery. Expansion was further stalled by violent internal friction. To the north stood Scotland, and the border between the two kingdoms had been defined by centuries of raids, massacres, and deep historical hatred. The 1603 Union of the Crowns was a sudden, accidental merger. When King James VI of Scotland inherited the English throne, he created a single monarch for two nations that remained deeply suspicious of one another. This domestic instability, combined with a severely limited royal treasury, left the state physically and financially unable to sustain a traditional military empire. To bypass the crown's poverty, England outsourced global exploration to private citizens through the Joint Stock Company. This allowed the immense cost and danger of a merchant voyage to be split into dozens of smaller shares. This system distributed risk across a network of merchants and nobles. If a ship sank, the loss was shared. When the returns rolled in, the decentralized pool of investors grew wealthy together. The Crown supported this by granting exclusive trade monopolies, like the charter given to the East India Company in 1600. The government reaped rewards in taxes without spending a dime of public money on the actual expeditions. Early expansion functioned as a decentralized corporate investment scheme, relying on private capital to push English horizons outward. In the late 1600s, Scotland attempted its own corporate expansion through the Darien scheme in Central America. The venture ended in starvation and disease, completely bankrupting the Scottish nation. This total financial collapse forced the 1707 Acts of Union. By merging with England, Scotland escaped bankruptcy and officially formed the Kingdom of Great Britain. The payoff was immediate. Scotland gained access to a booming global trade network, while England gained a massive influx of Scottish administrators, merchants, and soldiers to run it. This political fusion settled the island's internal borders and provided the manpower needed to drive the British corporate machine worldwide. British companies initially aimed for high-profit trade in spices, tobacco, and sugar. Governing foreign land was an expensive burden they actively tried to avoid. However, global trade required warehouses. Warehouses needed forts to block rival nations, and those forts required private corporate armies for defense. The turning point came in 1757 at the Battle of Plassey. The East India Company used its private military to defeat the local ruler of Bengal and install a leader who favored company interests. By 1765, the company acquired the Diwani, the legal right to collect local taxes. This contract transformed a private trading firm into a sovereign power governing millions of people. The pursuit of trade monopolies naturally forced these private corporations into the role of territorial conquerors. As commercial ambitions grew, labor shortages led the Crown to charter the Royal African Company. This systematized the trade of human lives to supply the labor required for the empire's plantations. This stowage plan of a British slave ship proves the exact industrialized nature of the transatlantic trade. British engineers designed these cramped holes to move the maximum volume of captives across the ocean. The profits from this tri-continental web funded London's banks and insurance firms. These colonial extractions provided the raw materials and capital that powered Britain's domestic factories. This system of exploitation provided the brutal capital foundation required to sustain Britain's industrial and economic rise. Eventually, the proxy empire reached a breaking point. These megacorporations either grew too large to manage or faced total bankruptcy. When the Virginia Company collapsed under debt and conflict, the Crown absorbed it as a royal colony to prevent the loss of the territory. In India, corporate mismanagement triggered massive famines and the violent 1857 uprising. These bullet-scarred ruins remain as evidence of the physical devastation caused by the company's failure to govern effectively. In 1858, the British Crown formally dissolved the East India Company and established direct state rule, an era known as the British Raj. State-led imperialism emerged as a reactive measure to manage the operational disasters left by these private companies. Now holding direct responsibility for global territories, the state implemented the Blue Water Strategy to protect its inherited wealth. This included the Navigation Acts, economic laws designed to force all colonial wealth and shipping exclusively through London ports. The state-funded Royal Navy physically enforced these trade laws, suppressing rival nations and patrolling the seas as the global police of British commerce. Infrastructure projects later tethered the global economy to British control. By dominating the Suez Canal, Britain literally bottlenecked global maritime trade through a passage it could easily defend. Private profit launched the first ships, political necessity unified the island, and the state eventually stepped in to secure the commercial results. This chain of events transformed a fractured island into an accidental superpower.